Welcome, dear subscribers and curious listeners of my channel. Luna Lovegood is far more than just a secondary character in Harry Potter. She is the embodiment of wondrous strangeness, bright eccentricity, and independent thinking. Though she entered the storyline only in the fifth book, her image instantly captivated fans, and behind her mysterious smile and deep eyes lies much more than meets the eye. Today, I'll share with you the most fascinating and little-known facts about Luna Lovegood. Enjoy the video. Number 1. After the Order of the Phoenix, off to Sweden. After the intense events at the Ministry of Magic, Luna, like all members of Dumbledore's army, deserved a break. Along with her eccentric father, Xenophilius Lovegood, she set off to Sweden, not for a beach holiday or castle tour, but on a quest for the mythical crumple-horned Snorkack. Most wizards thought this creature was pure fiction, but Luna believed, and not just believed, she lived for such mysteries. Interestingly, the trip became possible thanks to a sudden spike in the popularity of the Quibbler. After publishing Harry Potter's interview, sales soared, and the magazine even briefly overtook the Daily Prophet. That's the power of truth. Number 2. She was tricked by Severus Snape. As dark clouds gathered over Hogwarts, Harry began to trust his instincts more and more. In Half-Blood Prince, he no longer believed in Snape and felt that danger was near. Before setting off on a fateful mission with Dumbledore, Harry asked Luna and Ginny to keep an eye on the professor. But Snape was, as always, one step ahead. He told the girls that Professor Flitwick had fainted and needed help urgently. Kind-hearted Luna and Ginny rushed to assist, and Snape used the moment to slip away and fulfill his grim purpose. Number 3. Her fascination with vampires. Even in the magical world, vampires remain shrouded in mystery. Naturally, Luna couldn't pass up such an enigmatic topic. At Professor Slughorn's Christmas party, she met one, the elusive Sanguini. Though this character received little screen time, the meeting was a big event for Luna. She was enchanted. Rare and mysterious beings always sparked her curiosity. As for the films, they simply couldn't capture the entire world of Lovegood. Number 4. She saved Ron and Ginny. When Harry and his friends broke into the Ministry of Magic in a desperate attempt to rescue Sirius Black, everything went wrong. Death Eaters were waiting and a fierce battle broke out. At one point it seemed Ron and Ginny wouldn't make it. Ginny was injured and Ron was barely conscious. That's when Luna showed stunning bravery. She protected Ron and blasted the Death Eater, threatening Ginny with a powerful spell, so strong it smashed the model of the planet Pluto. It was one of those rare moments where Luna's quirkiness gave way to true strength of spirit. Number 5. She helped Harry tell his story. After Voldemort's return, few believed Harry. The public, stirred up by the Daily Prophet, labelled him a liar and a lunatic. Even within the walls of Hogwarts, he endured mockery and mistrust. That's when Luna stepped in. Her father, Xenophilius Lovegood, was the editor of The Quibbler, a publication that welcomed bold and unconventional ideas. It was in that magazine that Harry gave an interview conducted by none other than Rita Skeeter, whose secret Hermione had already exposed back in Goblet of Fire. The interview caused a sensation and changed many students' views. People started listening to Harry again, and it was Luna Lovegood who made it all possible. Number 6. She commentated on Quidditch. When Lee Jordan left Hogwarts, the position of Quidditch commentator became vacant, and who would have guessed that Luna would be considered for the role? In Half-Blood Prince, she got her chance. It was the strangest match ever. Luna confused players' names, got distracted by clouds, and commented not on the game itself, but on the vibrations in the atmosphere. Oddly enough, people found it hypnotic, and there was magic even in that. The films left this part out completely, and that's a shame. Number 7. She protected Harry. In the 5th film, Harry took a huge risk. He tried to contact Sirius through the fireplace in Umbridge's office. Unfortunately, he failed to take every precaution. In the books, however, this episode was developed far more thoroughly. Luna and Ginny helped Harry break into the office, but they were soon caught by the inquisitorial squad. Yet thanks to Hermione's clever plan, luring Umbridge into the Forbidden Forest, the group managed to fight back and disable their captors. Luna fought just as fiercely as the DA students, proving that behind her dreamy gaze was true courage. Number 8. She could see Thestrals. Luna saw what others couldn't. Not because of magic, but because of loss. When she was 9, she watched her mother die in front of her, an accident during one of her mother's magical experiments. After that day, the world looked different. She could see Thestrals, bony, black-winged creatures that pulled the carriages at Hogwarts. Everyone else thought the carriages moved on their own. Luna knew better. When Harry first noticed them in Order of the Phoenix, he thought he was losing his mind. Then Luna stood beside him, calm as ever. "You're not going mad," she said. "I can see them too. You're just as sane as I am." Her voice wasn't sad, just true. She explained what they were and why only certain people could see them. Not everyone has seen death and understood it. Luna had. And she offered that understanding to Harry, not with pity, but with quiet companionship. Number 9, she created original jewelry. Luna didn't wear fashion. She wore meaning. Her radish earrings weren't a joke. They were homemade charms against rackspurts. She believed in their presence, even if no one else did. Her butterbeer cork necklace, a shield against nargles. When Hermione raised an eyebrow, Luna just smiled. "It keeps the nargles away," she explained, as if it were obvious. Her style wasn't about standing out. It was about protection, belief, and quiet rebellion. Each piece was crafted with care, bright colors, odd shapes, impossible combinations. But it worked because Luna wore them like armor. Students laughed behind her back, called her loony. But not once did she stop. She walked through Hogwarts like a girl in a spell of her own making. Every accessory told a story. And though others saw nonsense, Luna saw defense. Against danger, against doubt, against the world that said she didn't belong. Number 10, her name is deeply symbolic. Her name was never random. Luna, Latin for moon. A name chosen like a spell, quiet but full of meaning. J.K. Rowling didn't hide the symbolism. Luna Lovegood was soft-spoken, glowing, and distant in ways that made others pause. Just like the moon, she didn't shine with borrowed light. She had her own rhythm, her own orbit. While others argued, Luna whispered truths no one else noticed. In Order of the Phoenix, when Harry felt utterly alone, she told him, "Things we lose have a way of coming back to us in the end, if not always in the way we expect." She didn't need a wand in her hand to cast magic. Her presence brought calm, but her thoughts pulled like tides. Oh, she was strange in the way that stars are strange, brilliant, distant, and impossible to ignore. Friends called her loony, but she wore it like a title. When others walked in lines, Luna floated, and still she found her way. "You're just as sane as I am," she once said with a smile. It wasn't mockery, it was a mirror. A reminder that being different is not a flaw. Her name didn't just suit her, it defined her. Luna was the moonlight that lit the darkest paths. Number 11, she became a magizoologist. After the war, Luna didn't stay still. While others rebuilt homes and lives, she packed a worn leather bag and set off into the unknown. She became a magi-zoologist, just like she always dreamed. Her first expedition led her to the rainforests of Peru, where she claimed to have spotted a shimmering crumple-horned snorkack. No one believed her, of course. But Luna didn't mind. "Things exist even when you can't see them," she once wrote in the Quibbler. Her faith in wonder was unshakable. She kept meticulous field notes, hand-drawn sketches, descriptions that read like poetry. "The creature hums when the moonlight touches its wings," she wrote of a rare, glass-winged diricor, a beast no other magizoologist had ever documented. Her work was often mocked by the magical elite, yet her articles became the Quibbler's most read columns. Children pinned her drawings to their bedroom walls. Young witches and wizards wrote her letters asking where to find moon frogs. Luna replied to everyone. She wasn't looking for fame, she was looking for truth. And for Luna, truth wasn't what everyone agreed on, it was what made your heart beat faster. She wandered through tundras, deserts, and hidden islands, always believing something magical was just around the bend. Her father's legacy lived through her, but she went even further. Luna Lovegood became more than a believer in strange creatures, she became their voice. Number 12. She married into the Scamander family. Luna Lovegood married a naturalist. Not just any naturalist, but Rolf Scamander, the grandson of Newt Scamander, the famed author of Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. Their love didn't bloom in ballrooms or on battlefields. It grew in muddy boots, dragon valleys, and under skies full of stars. They met over creatures no one else believed existed. For Luna, it was never about romance. It was about finding someone who saw the world the same strange way she did. Rolf wasn't famous for speeches. He was a quiet man, much like his grandfather. But Luna lit up his life like a comet through the fog. Together they crossed continents in search of shimmering snorkacs and mooncalves. They wrote articles, drew sketches, sent letters back to the Quibbler. Our work is more meaningful when we do it together, Luna once told Ginny, according to post-war accounts. They didn't want spotlights, they wanted stories. Their sons, Lorcan and Lysander, were raised in tents and treetops. They learned to speak to bowtruckles before they could walk. They grew up without uniforms or rules, just kindness, courage, and books full of wild things. Luna taught them to ask questions, Rolf taught them to listen, and together they raised boys who understood that magic wasn't always in spells, it was in wonder. They never built a grand house, they built a life instead, one full of laughter, maps with holes in them, and jars full of stardust. In a world still healing from war, Luna and Rolf didn't try to change everything. They simply chose a quiet life of exploration, love, and truth. And somehow that was more radical than any rebellion. Number 13, she became a symbol of individuality. She walked barefoot through Hogwarts once. No shoes, just the sound of her steps and the rattle of her radish earrings. Her hair was tangled like morning fog. She wore a lion hat that roared when Gryffindor scored. And when people laughed, she didn't blink. "I don't think you should worry," she once told Harry, "if people think you're a bit odd." That's what made Luna Lovegood unforgettable. She never asked for approval. She existed on her own terms. Her words stayed with people. Years after the books ended, fans stitched her quotes onto jackets, tattooed them on their skin, whispered them to themselves in dark rooms. The one that echoed the loudest? "You're just as sane as I am." Luna said it with wide eyes and complete sincerity. It wasn't a joke, it was a spell. A quiet kind of magic that told every outcast, "You're not broken, you're just different." And that's enough. Ivana Lynch, the actress who played Luna, was once a fan herself. She wrote letters to J.K. Rowling during her battle with an eating disorder. Luna helped her heal. Later, she became Luna, on screen, in heart, and in truth. The transformation meant something. Fans didn't just love Luna, they became her. In cosplay halls and college essays, on online forums and quiet therapy rooms, Luna's spirit lived on, not flashy, not loud, just defiantly gentle. She wasn't a warrior like Hermione, not a leader like Harry. But Luna was unshakable in her honesty. She believed in Nargles, in Rackspurts, in love, and she reminded millions that bravery doesn't always look like a sword. It can look like a girl wearing spectre specs, speaking softly in a world that yells. Number 14, she was kidnapped by Death Eaters. They took her in the dead of night. Not because she fought them, not because she defied them, but because her father, Xenophilius Lovegood, dared to print the truth. He supported Harry Potter in the pages of the Quibbler. That alone was enough. The Death Eaters wanted obedience. And when Xenophilius refused to retract the story, they took what mattered most to him, his daughter. Luna was only 17. They locked her in the cellar of Malfoy Manor. Cold stone, no windows, and the scent of fear soaked into the walls. She wasn't alone. Mr. Ollivander was there, fragile and worn from weeks of torture. Later, Dean Thomas joined them. Then Griphook the Goblin. Luna, the girl everyone thought strange, became their light. "We'll be okay," she whispered in the dark. "There's always a bit of moonlight, even underground." That wasn't just poetry. That was how she kept them alive. When Harry, Ron, and Hermione were captured and thrown into the same prison, Luna didn't cry out. She didn't panic. She held Ollivander's hand. She helped Hermione after Bellatrix tortured her. She sat beside the wounded and made sure no one gave in to despair. "You're not alone," she told Harry. It was the same calm voice she had used in Hogwarts, only now it carried through the chains and blood. Even when escape came, sudden, brutal, and led by Dobby's trembling hands, Luna didn't run first. She helped the others. She was the last to climb, and when Dobby fell, struck by Bellatrix's knife, Luna knelt beside him. "Thank you so much, Dobby," she said softly. "It's beautiful here." That's who Luna Lovegood was, a prisoner, a healer, a dreamer with iron in her bones. Number 15, she helped Harry understand the Deathly Hallows. Of all the characters in the world of Harry Potter, few seem as enigmatic, dreamlike, and unexpectedly crucial as Luna Lovegood. Her presence, ethereal and often brushed aside as oddity, threads through the narrative with delicate precision. It was easy for others to overlook her far-off gaze, her belief in creatures like Nargles, her tendency to speak truths too candidly. Yet, in the shadows of chaos and the growing terror of Voldemort's return, Luna offered something few others could, clarity hidden in strangeness. It was in her peculiar world, nestled within the eccentric house of her father, Xenophilius Lovegood, that Harry first glimpsed the symbol that would haunt and guide him, the symbol of the deathly. Hallows! Harry had seen the symbol before, scratched into a book left to him by Dumbledore, appearing like a riddle he couldn't yet solve. But it wasn't until he entered the Lovegood home, searching for answers, that the meaning began to breathe. Luna, always adorned with things others mocked, had grown up surrounded by that very symbol. It was on her father's robes, on the walls, in the stories that floated through the house like incense. To her, it wasn't a mystery. It was a symbol of a truth long buried under centuries of skepticism. While her father tried to explain the mark to Harry, it was Luna's familiarity with it, her calm acceptance of ancient legends as real, that pushed Harry to believe in something greater than logic, the tale of the three brothers, once just a bedtime. Story in the Tales of Beedle the Bard became a map to something real. When Xenophilius described the Deathly Hallows to Harry, Ron, and Hermione, it was clear that his obsession bordered on the manic. He drew the triangle with a circle and line. "The Elder Wand, the Resurrection Stone, the Cloak of Invisibility," he said. But it wasn't the drawing that etched itself into Harry's mind, it was the setting. The way Luna's quiet voice had earlier mentioned the tale, the way she accepted the Hallows as fact. "She's grown up with the story," Hermione later admitted, though still unconvinced. But Harry felt the pull. Luna's belief, strange as it seemed, was unwavering, and in a world now cracked wide open by death and betrayal, unwavering belief was powerful. Harry had been hunting Horcruxes, convinced that they were the key to Voldemort's immortality. But in the quiet moments after the Lovegood house visit, something shifted. He began to wonder if there was another layer. The tale of the Deathly Hallows offered not just weapons, but understanding. A man who possessed all three would become the master of death, not by conquering it, but by accepting it. Luna had not laid out a plan for Harry, but her presence in that home, her comfort with what others deemed myth, lit the match. Luna's role was not that of a warrior or strategist, but of a subtle guide. While others argued over plans and politics, she carried ancient wisdom wrapped in eccentricity. The way she spoke of thestrals, creatures only visible to those who had seen death, was the first sign that she viewed the world differently. To Luna, the unseen was not imaginary. It was merely waiting for those willing to see it. The Hallows, like the thestrals, were truths disguised as fairy tales. And Harry, after years of loss and pain, was finally ready to see them. After their escape from the Lovegood home, shattered by Xenophilius's betrayal in an attempt to save his daughter, Harry could not forget what he'd seen. It was a circle, he said later, with a triangle around it and a line down the middle. The symbol burned in his thoughts, more insistent than ever. It was more than curiosity now. It was need. Voldemort had begun searching for the Elder Wand. Harry, meanwhile, had started to understand that it wasn't just about power. Luna's world, as strange as it was, had introduced him to a kind of truth that logic alone could not reveal. Dumbledore, in his cryptic brilliance, had left the clues. The invisibility cloak passed from Ignotus Peverell down to Harry was one of the Hallows, the resurrection stone hidden inside the golden snitch, and the Elder Wand, stolen from Dumbledore's tomb, all pieces of a puzzle meant for someone who could see beyond the obvious. Luna never said the words directly. She didn't need to. Her upbringing in a home that revered the Hallows, her ease in speaking of death, and her belief in things unseen made her the perfect contrast to Hermione's skepticism. It was in her softness that Harry found direction. In the forest of belief and doubt, Luna was a beacon. Her faith in the unreal was not naive, it was prophetic. "You're just as sane as I am," she once told Harry with a smile, a phrase that now echoed not as sarcasm but as insight. It was Luna who believed in Harry when others wavered, and it was Luna's influence that allowed Harry to take the leap, to pursue not just Horcruxes, but the understanding of the Hallows as a path toward the inevitable confrontation with death. When Harry faced the Resurrection Stone later, moments before surrendering himself to Voldemort, he did not do so in fear. He had already made peace with death, not because he craved it, but because he no longer feared it. The story of the three brothers had taught him something Luna had always understood. Death is not the enemy, it is a part of the journey. The one who greets it like an old friend is the true master. Luna, who had seen her mother die at the age of 9, who spoke of the departed with a quiet reverence, had always known. Number 16. She saw ghosts differently than others. Luna Lovegood never flinched when a ghost passed through her. She blinked, perhaps, or tilted her head with interest, but fear was foreign to her. While other Hogwarts students shrieked in surprise when the Bloody Baron glided silently through a wall or scuttled away from Peeves the poltergeist, Luna simply smiled. To Luna, ghosts weren't spectres of unfinished business or reminders of mortality. They were companions, shadows of stories not yet done. This wasn't bravery in the Gryffindor sense, nor a Ravenclaw's thirst for knowledge. It was something quieter, a deep acceptance that death, like life, had its own peculiar rhythm. And Luna, who could see thestrals and hear things others could not, seemed attuned to that rhythm more than anyone else in her year. Most students saw Nearly Headless Nick as a mildly amusing, occasionally pitiful figure. He was the type of ghost you'd invite to a Halloween party, but not to a conversation about eternity. Luna, on the other hand, once spent 3 hours under the beech tree near the Black Lake listening to Nick describe his failed beheading, not out of morbid fascination, but because she thought his frustration mattered. It's terribly unfair to not be accepted into the headless hunt just because your head is still attached by a bit of skin, she told Ginny afterward, her voice serene. It must be dreadfully lonely. And when Ginny rolled her eyes, Luna only blinked and said, "He's not scary, you know. He's just stuck." Even the grey lady, elusive and aloof, paused when Luna approached. Helena Ravenclaw rarely spoke with students unless absolutely necessary, yet with Luna something shifted. Perhaps it was because Luna never asked her about the lost diadem or her tragic past. She didn't probe, she simply acknowledged her, called her by name. Once, when Luna passed her in the corridor, she said softly, "It must be hard to see your mother's legacy misunderstood." The grey lady froze. She didn't reply, but she stayed there, hovering in silence, long after Luna had gone. Respect is a strange thing, particularly among the dead. Luna gave it freely, without needing anything in return. Others whispered about Luna, of course. They always had. At Hogwarts, being different wasn't always celebrated, but Luna wore her difference like a comfortable robe. She claimed that ghosts were shadows of the soul who forgot where to go, and the way she said it made it sound neither sad nor mystical, just true. When asked why she talked to them, she said, "Because they're still here. Isn't that enough reason?" No one ever had a retort for that. It wasn't logical. It was Luna. The castle itself seemed to sense her openness. The ancient stones of Hogwarts held thousands of memories. Ghosts were not rare here, but communication with them was. They glided by, eternal, overlooked. Luna saw them, not just as translucent echoes of people, but as beings suspended between two worlds. She never asked them why they hadn't moved on. Instead, she asked what they remembered, what they loved, what they missed. And they told her because she listened. There was one moment, in her 4th year, when Luna stood alone in the astronomy tower during a winter evening, speaking to a ghost no one else could see. It wasn't a known spirit, none of the house ghosts, nor the moaning myrtle. This ghost was quiet, with a faint shimmer of blue in her hair. Luna spoke to her softly, smiling, laughing once. The ghost didn't speak back, at least not in words anyone else could hear. But afterward, Luna descended the tower, humming a lullaby that no one had ever taught her. That night, she dreamed of stars being carried away in bottles. She said the ghost had once been a nurse during the early years of Hogwarts and still returned to soothe crying children in their sleep. When the subject of death came up in class, most students shuddered. Luna didn't. "It's not an end," she said in a dreamy voice, "just a change in direction." She was laughed at, as usual, but Professor Flitwick paused, his tiny frame suddenly very still. "That's remarkably close to what the great wizard Algren the Silent wrote before he vanished," he said quietly. Luna blinked. Then he probably understood too. After Sirius Black's death, Harry found comfort in Luna in a way he didn't expect. She didn't offer clichés. She didn't say it would get better. Instead, she said, "I'm sorry, I know what it's like. My mother, she'll always be a part of me, just invisible now." Later, she told him, "You can hear them sometimes if you really listen." It wasn't meant to be comforting. It was meant to be honest. And Harry, who had seen too many people die too soon, appreciated the lack of sugarcoating. In Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, Luna's ability to see thestrals becomes the symbol of her connection to death. "They're quite gentle, really," she says, "but people avoid them because they can only be seen by those who've seen death." Her statement is quiet but piercing. She doesn't flaunt this understanding, but neither does she hide from it. Luna's experience with grief is woven into her like the pattern in her eccentric robes. It doesn't define her, but it shapes how she sees the world and the afterlife. It's easy to dismiss ghosts as comic relief in the wizarding world. Peeves certainly encourages that impression. But Luna took them seriously. Even Peeves, who rarely respected anyone, once refrained from throwing a chalkboard at her during a prank-filled week. "Loony sees more than you think," he muttered, half in awe. Luna didn't need validation. But it came, even from the most unlikely places. Number 17. She helped revive Dumbledore's army. When Hogwarts fell under the grip of the Carrows and Voldemort's brutal regime, the ancient castle became a place of silence and fear. Once echoing with the laughter of students and the charm of secret passageways, it now pulsed with whispers and dread. The great stone walls witnessed punishments that made even the portraits turn their faces away. But in the darkest corners of the school, beneath layers of dust and time, courage found a voice again, through the forgotten heartbeat of Dumbledore's army. And among its bravest voices stood one that no one expected to rise so fiercely, Luna Lovegood. It was easy to dismiss Luna, the girl with dreamy eyes and a necklace of butterbeer corks. She believed in creatures no one else had seen, talked of conspiracies in the Quibbler, and walked through the world as though gravity only occasionally applied to her. But in the age of tyranny, she proved to be something far more profound than quirky. She became unshakable. When Alecto and Amicus Carrow roamed the halls, torturing students and replacing education with cruelty, Luna chose resistance over retreat. With Harry gone and the trio off the grid, it was Luna, Neville Longbottom, and Ginny Weasley who refused to let hope vanish. They met in whispers, hiding behind tapestries and slipping through secret tunnels. It was Luna who suggested returning to the Room of Requirement, the enchanted chamber that had once served as the base for Dumbledore's army. "The room will know what we need," she had said with quiet certainty. And it did. The room transformed once more into a sanctuary for the rebellious few. The reformation of the DA wasn't a reckless act of teenage bravado, it was a lifeline. Under the new regime, the Carrows taught subjects like the dark arts instead of defense against the dark arts. Students were ordered to practice curses on one another. Refusal brought punishment. Screams became as common as spells. But in the Room of Requirement, the students found more than refuge. They found each other. They trained, they planned, they remembered. It was Luna who read aloud past notes from Harry's DA lessons, preserving his spirit in absentia. She reminded them why they fought. Neville grew into a defiant leader. Ginny's fire never waned, but Luna was the quiet soul of the rebellion. Her calm in the face of fear became a kind of magic of its own. When others panicked, she meditated. When someone was caught and dragged away, she whispered, "They'll come back." She painted stars on the ceiling of the room, a reminder of the world beyond stone. She hung wind chimes made from broken wands and called them charms of resilience. In a time where death felt like a daily shadow, Luna gave them beauty. She never sought control, but her presence anchored the army. When first years cried from hunger, she shared her rations. When a sixth year doubted the cause, Luna told a story of the Thestrals, how one must witness death to see their truth. "Sometimes," she said, "truth is only seen in darkness." The Carrows heard rumours of resistance, but never found proof. Luna kept it that way, moving through the castle like smoke. She remembered every creaking floorboard, every shortcut, and every hiding place. But courage, no matter how clever, cannot always avoid danger. Luna was captured returning from an errand. She had gone to leave food in the Hufflepuff common room. A group of younger students was starving. Amicus Carrow caught her on the 5th floor corridor. Her wand was taken, her arms bound. She was dragged before Severus Snape, who offered no help. "She's your problem now," he muttered, cold and distant. The Carrows demanded names. They cursed her, but Luna said nothing. She only blinked calmly, her silence louder than screams. They imprisoned her in the dungeons without light or warmth. Days passed. She was beaten. Still she never spoke. It was Dean Thomas, also captured, who later said, "She never cried, not once, not when they starved us, not when they hexed her." She just whispered things to herself about stars, about hope. The DA was nearly broken by her loss. Neville punched a wall in rage. Ginny wept in the room of requirement. But then something unexpected happened. Dobby found her. The brave house elf, risking everything, had heard whispers of a prisoner who would not bend. Dobby snuck into the dungeons under cover of illusion and freed her. She could barely walk. Her legs shook, her robes torn. But when she returned to the room of requirement, a ghost in the doorway, the DA erupted in tears. "We thought you were dead," Neville said, his voice cracking. Luna only smiled and said, "Not yet." She didn't rest. She asked for her wand. She asked for the newest list of Caro patrols. She asked who had been taken while she was gone, and then she trained harder than anyone else. There was no room for fear anymore. Luna taught others to disarm without speaking, to vanish without leaving a trace. She invented new signals, bird calls, hand signs, tapping patterns, so students could warn each other of patrols. Her mind, often considered a cloud of fantasy, became a weapon of endless creativity. Luna once believed in crumple-horned snorkax and rackspurts. Now she believed in freedom. Her spirit became infectious. Even the most skeptical students, those who had laughed at her before, began following her advice. She taught them to remain themselves, no matter the fear. "If we forget who we are," she told them one night, "then they win. The real magic is remembering." It wasn't bravado, it was a mantra. And the army endured. The climax came in the Battle of Hogwarts. When Harry returned, the DA was ready. Luna was among the first to meet him in the room of requirement. "We never stopped," she said simply. She led the charge through the corridors. She stunned Death Eaters with spells she had crafted in secret. She protected younger students. When the time came to destroy the diadem of Ravenclaw, Luna was the one who brought Harry to the Grey Lady. "You should listen to her," she told him. "She's lonely. Number 18, her wand was unique." Luna Lovegood had always stood apart from her classmates, not because she wanted to, but because she saw the world through different eyes. Her perception of reality often hovered on the edge of the fantastical, but it was precisely this unusual vision that made her magical core so powerful. And perhaps nothing reflected this better than her wand, a rare and beautiful creation that seemed almost as alive as Luna herself. It was made of cherry wood with a dragon heartstring core. Two materials that, when combined, produced something not only powerful, but deeply symbolic. Cherry was a wood often associated with peace, balance, and quiet confidence. The dragon heartstring, by contrast, was raw power, pulsing with danger and emotion. The merging of these two opposites mirrored Luna's very soul. Calm but strong, gentle yet fearless. Most characters in the Harry Potter series wield wands that receive only passing mentions, mere tools of the trade. Harry's wand was famous for sharing a core with Voldemort's. Hermione's was made of vine wood and had a dragon heartstring core, while Ron's initial wand was hand-me-down willow, later replaced with a new wand of ash and unicorn hair. But Luna's wand was different, both in description and in spirit. Though the books do not go into much detail about it, additional lore from J.K. Rowling's universe and the choices made in the design of her wand in the films give us a glimpse into its magic. The cherry wood, rarely used, was not simply beautiful, it was wise. It did not need to boast. Cherry wands were reputed to be particularly effective when wielded by witches or wizards with strong convictions, but whose methods defied conventional wisdom. That alone made Luna a perfect match. She was a Ravenclaw not known for solving riddles with logic, but for seeing patterns others missed. Her intelligence was not linear, but intuitive. She believed in things others mocked, nargles, crumple-horned snorkax, and spectres unseen. And her wand, as if understanding the rhythm of her mind, danced to the same strange beat. Cherry wands were almost never found in the hands of dark witches or wizards, which was telling in itself. There was a purity to her spirit that repelled cruelty, even in the darkest of times. The wand's core, a dragon heartstring, was another matter altogether. Dragon cores were known to be the most powerful of all wand cores and also the most temperamental. They bonded quickly and strongly with their owners, but were capable of powerful magic in the wrong hands. Many feared them, but Ollivander, the master wand-maker, revered them. "Dragons are not to be trifled with," he once said, "and neither are their hearts." To house such a core within cherry wood was a delicate balancing act, a quiet storm wrapped in serenity. But Luna, in her softness, had always been more formidable than she appeared. The wand was a reflection of that buried fire. During the final year of the war, Luna was captured by Death Eaters and imprisoned in the basement of Malfoy Manor. She endured her captivity with the grace and patience that defined her. But she lost her wand in the process, a casualty of war that many would have dismissed. Yet for Luna, the loss was deeply personal. A wand was not merely an instrument of magic, it was a partner, a companion, and in her case, a mirror. For someone who believed in invisible creatures and whose mind was open to magic most others ignored, her wand had become an anchor, an extension of her soul. When it was taken from her, it was as though something essential had been severed. After her daring rescue, aided by Dobby and the trio, Luna returned to safety at Shell Cottage. It was there, in the quiet aftermath of her imprisonment, that she met Garrick Ollivander once more. The old wand-maker had also been freed from the Malfoys and was recuperating. Their bond, built years earlier when Luna first came to his shop, was rekindled not in words but in mutual understanding. Ollivander saw in Luna something he had seen in very few, unshakable kindness in the face of darkness. She never asked him to make her a new wand. She didn't have to. Ollivander took it upon himself to craft a replacement for her, not out of duty, but out of gratitude. "She is a remarkable young lady," he said quietly, his hand trembling slightly as he selected the wood. He chose cherry again, but this time from a tree that had grown wild near his own home, a personal gift infused with care. The dragon heartstring he selected had been saved for something special. It came from a Hungarian horntail, a creature whose strength was legendary. The wand he made that day would later be called, in wand lore circles, one of the most spirited and responsive he had ever produced. The first time Luna held it, she smiled, not with surprise, but with recognition. The wand pulsed in her hand, not with heat or urgency, but with calm welcome. It was as though it remembered her. Though the materials were new, the bond was instant. Those who watched said the room felt warmer, the air clearer. It was Ollivander himself who whispered, "She brings life to it." And indeed it was said afterward that the wand had a lustre unlike any other, a soft glow in the wood's grain, as if light moved just beneath the surface. In the final battle at Hogwarts, Luna wielded her new wand with quiet precision. She conjured patronuses and shield spells, not in rage, but with resolve. Her strength was not in brute force, but in clarity. She stood beside Harry when others faltered, helping him see what he could not, the diadem's resting place, the room of requirements, secrets. Her magic was rooted in awareness, and the wand responded as though it shared her mind. Where others struggled to control their spells, Luna's spells flowed like breath. After the war, Luna never sought fame. She returned to her studies, eventually becoming a renowned magizoologist. Yet those who had seen her in battle never forgot the power she wielded, not loud or violent, but potent and exact. Rumours spread about her wand, and Ollivander, when asked, would only nod and say, "Some wands choose their owners with a whisper, not a roar, and they never let go." That particular wand was said to almost hum when Luna was near, a low, comforting vibration like a heartbeat. Wand lore is a subtle art, and very few wands are remembered in legend unless paired with extraordinary magic. The Elder Wand, of course, held its infamous place in history. Harry's wand was unique for its twin connection, but Luna's wand was special in a different way. It was never famous, never notorious, but it was alive. Some young students who visited Ollivander's shop years later swore that one wand on the shelf occasionally shimmered slightly when no one was near. Ollivander, with a rare smile, would explain, "That's cherry and dragon heartstring, not for sale." There is something hauntingly beautiful about the idea that a wand could hold memories, not only of spells cast, but of the emotions that birthed them. Luna's wand had felt fear in the dungeons, triumph in the battle, and serenity in the silence that followed. It was part of every journey she had taken, and somehow it seemed to grow with her. Where others replaced wands and discarded them, Luna's new wand became more than a tool. It was a partner in exploration, both in the physical and magical worlds. Even in adulthood, when she roamed the globe in search of magical creatures, Luna carried her wand close, wrapped not in velvet but in simple linen. She believed it preferred the touch of the earth and the scent of herbs. She would talk to it sometimes, not because she thought it could answer, but because it felt right. She once told Rolf Scamander, "It listens better than most people." And he, though a scientist at heart, never questioned it. Interestingly, cherry wood was often associated in Eastern wand lore with inner harmony and the balancing of forces. The Japanese wizarding schools prized it highly, using it only for students who demonstrated rare intuition and emotional balance. That Luna's wand was made of such wood was more than coincidence. She brought balance to every room she entered. She could calm angry friends, see through lies, and understand the broken without needing to fix them. Her wand amplified those gifts, channeling them into spellwork that was often underestimated, but never ineffective. Her Patronus, a hare, reflected her essence, fast, alert, and ever aware of the shadows others missed. The first time she cast it with her new wand, it leapt higher and farther than it ever had before. In Deathly Hallows, it was Luna who helped Harry find peace amid panic. Her quiet wisdom, "You're just as sane as I am," had always been more than a joke, it was a philosophy. The wand, like her, believed in clarity over certainty. Some years later, Luna gifted a detailed drawing of her wand to Ollivander's grandson, who began collecting stories of unique wands. The drawing included not only the wand's measurements, but notes in Luna's handwriting: listens to dreams, dislikes loud noises, thrives near water. These were not technical specifications, but emotional truths. The wand had a personality, one formed by experience and affection, not just magic. It was a living story, and she treated it as such. Though many wizards went through multiple wands in a lifetime, Luna's post-war wand never needed replacing. It never lost its strength or loyalty. Perhaps it was because it was forged not only of wood and core, but of memory and kindness. Ollivander often said the best wands were those made for people who didn't seek greatness but carried it anyway. Luna was one of the few who made the wand greater, rather than the other way around. In the end, Luna's wand was never about flash or fame. It never won duels for sport or lit the sky with arrogance. But it saved lives, helped heal, and brought light to the darkest corners. And that, more than any spell or flourish, is what made it legendary in its own quiet way. Some say it still hums with life in Luna's hands, years after its crafting, not out of duty, but devotion. Number 19, she had a gift for comforting others. On the day Sirius Black fell through the veil, the world seemed to shatter around Harry Potter. The Department of Mysteries, the whispers of the Arch, the cold void beyond the veil, all of it twisted into one great scream inside Harry's chest. Grief was not a stranger to him, but this time it arrived like an avalanche, unstoppable and cruel. The others around him tried to offer comfort, but their voices felt hollow. Hermione's gentle concern, Ron's awkward silence, even Dumbledore's measured words, they were well-meaning, but none of them reached the place where the pain lived. Yet in the middle of that emotional rubble there was one voice, soft and dreamy, that somehow reached the wounded centre of Harry's soul. It was Luna Lovegood, strange, ethereal Luna whose mind seemed to dance to a rhythm no one else could hear. Many dismissed her as odd, even delusional. Her belief in nargles, crumple-horned snorkacs and voices beyond the veil made her a target for whispers and ridicule. But in the moment when Harry's heart was breaking, it was her strange wisdom that offered the only real balm. She did not look away from his pain, did not attempt to erase it with platitudes. Instead, she stood beside it, like one who knew sorrow not just as an idea, but as a familiar shadow. She told him about her mother, Pandora Lovegood, a brilliant witch whose experimental magic had exploded one day, leaving Luna alone with her father at an early age. Luna did not cry when she spoke. She did not lower her voice to dramatic effect. Her words came as simply as leaves falling from a tree. "It was rather horrible," she said, in order of the phoenix, her silvery eyes fixed on some invisible truth. "But I still feel very sad about it sometimes. But I've still got Dad. And anyway, it's not as though I'll never see Mum again, is it?" The innocence of the statement, its utter sincerity, broke through the fog in Harry's mind. In that moment, Luna was not the girl who wore radish earrings or read The Quibbler upside down. She was something else entirely, a mirror. She reflected back to Harry what he could not yet say himself, that grief did not have to destroy, that sorrow did not mean abandonment. She offered not logic, not reassurance, but belief, one that was neither forced nor insistent, but woven into her very being. Luna believed in things others could not see, and for once it made her the wisest of them all. Harry, who had heard every adult in his life offer the cold comfort of "he's in a better place," or "you'll be all right," finally found a kind of peace in Luna's voice. She did not try to cheer him up. She did not tell him to move on. She simply shared her truth, and in doing so gave him permission to carry his pain without shame. It was a subtle form of magic, perhaps not taught at Hogwarts, but no less powerful than a Patronus. Luna's presence did what no spell could. It made him feel understood. In the Hogwarts Express carriage after the battle at the Department of Mysteries, Harry watched the landscape blur past the window. The wound of Sirius's death still throbbed inside him. Ron was asleep, Hermione quietly reading, Ginny resting against the seat. Luna sat across from him, folding copies of The Quibbler into paper hats. It was she who brought up the Thestrals, those skeletal winged horses that only those who had seen death could see. "You're not mad," she said, and with those 3 words, Harry no longer felt alone in the madness. The strength of Luna's gift was not in what she believed, but in how she believed it. She never demanded that others accept her truth. Instead, she held it lightly in her hands, offering it like a lantern in the dark. For someone like Harry, who had walked through so much darkness, that light was more valuable than any spell or potion. It reminded him that grief could be carried, not just buried. It reminded him that hope and sorrow could live in the same heart. In a world where bravery often looked like battle scars and shouted spells, Luna's bravery was quiet. She had the courage to see the world differently and the gentleness to let others be exactly who they were. She didn't flinch from pain, her own or anyone else's. When others dismissed her, she did not fight to be believed. She simply continued to speak her truth. That is what made her so powerful. That is what made her the one person Harry could truly listen to after losing Sirius. Even in Dumbledore's army, Luna's presence was less about power and more about perspective. While others practiced hexes and shields, she seemed to anchor them to a deeper reason for fighting. She once said, Things we lose have a way of coming back to us in the end, if not always in the way we expect. That line, which might have sounded naive in another voice, came from Luna with such sincerity that it stuck in the soul. It was the kind of wisdom that bypassed reason and sank into something deeper. She carried this same quiet strength during the darkest times at Hogwarts. When Death Eaters took over the school, Luna did not lose her gentleness. She was captured, imprisoned in the dungeons of Malfoy Manor, but she never became bitter. When Harry, Ron, and Hermione were also taken there, it was Luna who kept the others calm. She drew a picture of her friends on the walls of her cell, not out of delusion, but out of love. Her memory of them became her resistance, her comfort, and her source of strength. It was a different kind of defiance, the kind that didn't need to shout. When they escaped and hid in Shell Cottage, Luna again proved her rare ability to comfort without condescension. Griphook, the goblin, sat apart, bitter and suspicious. Dean Thomas was restless and haunted, yet Luna moved through the house like moonlight, soft and calming. She listened, she noticed, she cared. It wasn't a performance, it was who she was, and that, more than anything, made people trust her. Her compassion was not passive. She fought at the Battle of Hogwarts. She stood beside Harry in the Forbidden Forest. She was not afraid, but even there, amid the chaos and death, her strength lay not just in her wand, but in her heart. When Harry died and returned, it was Luna who knew how to hold the silence around him. Others crowded him, overwhelmed him, but Luna simply said, "Let's give him some space." No command, no fanfare, just understanding. Luna's comfort was not for show. She did not need to fix anyone. She simply reminded them that they weren't broken. Her way of seeing the world made space for every emotion: grief, fear, love, hope. She could sit with sorrow without needing to banish it. She could walk alongside pain without turning away. That's what made her rare. Even after the war, her role in Harry's memory remained bright. When asked later who had helped him most after Sirius died, he remembered Luna, not because she had done something grand, but because she had done something real. She had spoken the words no one else could. Not to erase his grief, but to accompany it, to make it less lonely. Her empathy was born not just from imagination, but from loss. Losing her mother had opened a door in her heart, not a wound, and through that door she reached others. Her words had no polish, but they had power. Her gaze was unfocused, but her heart saw clearly. She did not fear death. She did not worship it. She accepted it as part of the journey. In Luna's world, ghosts weren't just phantoms, they were memories with breath. She could speak of death without dread because she did not see it as an end. When Harry stood at the edge of despair, she was the only one who spoke of Sirius not as gone, but as waiting. Not in denial, but in belief. That belief became a rope that pulled Harry back from the brink. She never tried to be a hero. She never sought recognition. But in the quiet moments, on the train, in the dungeons, by the arch, in the Department of Mysteries, Luna's voice was a kind of magic that changed everything. Not flashy, not loud, just true. For someone whose head was so often in the clouds, Luna was deeply grounded in the human heart. She knew what it meant to hurt, to hope, to lose, and to keep going. She didn't lecture, she didn't advise, she shared, she listened, and sometimes that was all someone needed. Luna Lovegood will never be remembered as the most powerful witch of her age, but in the eyes of those who truly knew her, she was something better. She was the one who made pain feel less lonely, who made grief feel less like a dead end and more like a bridge, and that is a magic few ever master. Number 20. She was inspired by nature and the cosmos. Luna Lovegood had always been a mystery to her classmates at Hogwarts, but what few truly understood was that her eccentric thoughts and ethereal demeanor were deeply rooted in her profound connection with nature and the cosmos. From the first moment she appeared with radish earrings and a dreamy look in her eyes, it was easy to dismiss her as odd. Yet those who took the time to listen would have realized that her peculiar musings often carried the echo of something much older and more powerful than simple teenage fantasy, something elemental, something universal. She once stood alone in the astronomy tower for hours, gazing at the stars while others returned to the warmth of their beds. On that night, as Orion emerged clearly in the crisp winter sky, Luna whispered to herself facts not found in any textbook. "The stars hum to each other," she once said softly during a divination lesson. Her classmates snickered. Professor Trelawney gave her a knowing smile but said nothing. Luna wasn't being metaphorical, she meant it quite literally. She believed that stars emitted ancient magical frequencies that only certain minds, like hers, could interpret in dreams. Her fascination with the moon was even deeper. While most witches and wizards used moon phases for potion brewing or werewolf tracking, Luna viewed the moon as a guide, a teacher, and a source of gentle feminine magic. She would often carry smooth moonstones in her robes, believing that they kept her thoughts clear and emotions balanced. She mentioned once to Ginny Weasley that the moon could reflect one's true self when looked upon with the right kind of eyes. It was a belief rooted in love, not logic, but Luna never sought to prove anything. Her truth did not require validation. The most poetic symbol of Luna's philosophy lay within her bedroom at Hogwarts. Unlike other Ravenclaw dormitories filled with books and polished trunks, Luna's space was like a shrine to the stars. The ceiling had been enchanted, not with standard spells, but with her own form of quiet, instinctive magic, to mimic the night sky. Constellations made of glowing paint swirled gently overhead, but it was the way she represented her friends that revealed the depth of her soul. Around her celestial sky, she painted 5 figures: Harry, Hermione, Ron, Ginny, and Neville. Each name was carefully drawn in silver thread, stretched across the ceiling like constellations. They sparkled faintly, as if alive, connected by delicate lines of light. It was her way of saying thank you. Luna, who had always been on the outskirts, had found in them a kind of warmth she never expected. They never laughed at her, not cruelly at least, and they had fought beside her at the Department of Mysteries. "I enjoyed the ride on the Thestrals. It's like being part of the sky," she said after the battle. In her strange way, it was her way of expressing awe for life, even when surrounded by chaos. Her friends were stars to her, celestial, unshakable, and eternal. Nature, to Luna, was not separate from magic. It was its most honest form. While others practiced wandwork and potion-making, Luna would spend afternoons by the lake, observing the movement of water beetles, or the way the sun glinted off the giant squid's rippling form. She believed magic flowed through these things too, in quiet, subtle ways. Once, when a group of first years mocked her for talking to a tree, she simply smiled and explained that some trees remembered what the soil told them. They giggled and left, but Luna stayed, her hand pressed gently against the bark, listening. There was a rhythm in the natural world that Luna responded to intuitively. When the forbidden forest shimmered in the dawn, she would be there, sketching patterns in the dirt with her wand, not as spells, but as meditations. To Luna, the ground was alive with memory. She believed the wind carried messages from ancient magical creatures long extinct, and if one sat still long enough, the wind might share a secret. This spiritual connection extended into her beliefs about unseen creatures. The crumple-horned snorkack, the rackspurts, the nargles, they were, for Luna, expressions of a world layered over the physical one, like auroras over clouds. To Luna, these weren't inventions or whims, they were possibilities. Her father, Xenophilius Lovegood, encouraged this form of thinking. The pages of the Quibbler were filled with outlandish ideas, but they were also full of wonder. Luna inherited both the skepticism toward authority and the faith in unseen truths. "You're just as sane as I am," she once told Harry with a smile. It wasn't irony, it was trust. Her friendship with Neville Longbottom was one of mutual respect. Where he was grounded in herbs and earthy magic, she danced in the air above it. Yet the two of them often walked together through greenhouses or the edges of the forest. Neville once told Hermione that Luna could name every flower in the greenhouse, but she didn't use Latin names. She called them by what they meant to her. "That one," she said, pointing to a vibrant bloom, "is a memory keeper. Smells like childhood summers." And indeed, when Neville leaned in, he was struck by a sudden memory of his grandmother's garden. During the darkest days at Hogwarts, when the Carrows imposed fear and pain, Luna held on to her cosmic beliefs with even greater strength. Her drawings became bolder, her ceiling sky glowed brighter. In the face of tyranny, she responded not with violence, but with quiet magic. Her friends became her constellation of hope. When she was taken to Malfoy Manor, it was this mental sky she escaped into. Trapped in cold walls, she closed her eyes and imagined stars moving across her ceiling, each friend shining above her in defiance of darkness. Even in captivity, Luna found meaning in small things. She observed the way dust caught the light through tiny cracks in stone, or how the wind whistled in faint tunes through prison bars. Where others saw only fear, she found fragments of nature asserting its presence. Her resilience didn't come from brute strength or strategic thinking. It came from wonder. That wonder was her protection. Later, when she and Dean Thomas escaped together and joined the resistance, Luna found herself drawing again. This time, maps of stars to track the passage of time in the woods, using constellations as both compass and comfort. She taught Ginny and Neville how to use moss patterns to find east, how birdsong shifted just before dusk. The stars weren't just beautiful to Luna, they were useful. And in a world of shifting loyalties, she believed the stars would never lie. When the Battle of Hogwarts began, Luna didn't hesitate. With her wand raised, she fought with a grace that surprised many. She moved like someone who understood the chaos of nature and embraced it. Her spells were fluid, her timing uncanny. She knew when to strike and when to step back. Her belief in balance extended even to battle. When she stood beside Harry to protect him from Bellatrix, she wasn't trying to be brave, she was being loyal to the constellation she had built in her heart. After the war, Luna's journey didn't end. She became a magizoologist, traveling the world not to collect trophies, but to learn the rhythms of unknown creatures and forgotten places. She visited the floating islands of Burma and the glowing fungi caves in Peru. She sent Neville a photograph of herself standing beside a creature with wings like nebulae captioned, "They sing at dawn, it's like hearing a sunrise." Her life remained tuned to the unseen frequencies of nature and space. Her home, eventually, reflected this eternal fascination. The ceiling in her study was a recreation of her Hogwarts dormitory sky. Her library was filled not just with magical texts, but with star charts, dried herbs, and fossils. She kept a jar of moonwater on her windowsill and claimed it helped her remember dreams. Friends who visited described it as a house where one could hear silence differently, like a whisper from the stars. She married Rolf Scamander, another soul who loved the strange and wondrous. Together they studied phenomena that blurred the line between magic and nature. But it was always Luna who brought poetry to their research. She would pause before documenting a creature, just to sketch its silhouette against the sky. "We forget to look up," she once told Rolf. "That's where the ancient things still live." In one of her speeches at Hogwarts when she returned as a guest lecturer, she stood before a room of uncertain young witches and wizards and said, "You are part of the sky. Every thought you have sends ripples into the universe. Be careful with them. Be kind with them." The students didn't fully understand, but they listened. Her voice, calm and clear, carried the weight of someone who had walked in both shadow and starlight. To those who knew her best, Luna's brilliance was not just intellectual, it was spiritual. She made magic feel like part of something larger than human ambition. She reminded even the greatest wizards that before wands and incantations there was nature, the moon, the stars. When Harry once looked up at a particularly bright night sky, he found himself whispering, "Luna would love this." It wasn't just a thought, it was a connection. In her own way, Luna Lovegood taught the magical world that magic was not always loud or showy. Sometimes it was a quiet thing, a silver thread connecting friends across a ceiling, a soft gaze at a crescent moon, a belief in creatures no one else could see. She didn't need everyone to understand her, she only needed to believe in her own truth. And in doing so, she left a trail of stardust behind her, like a comet passing softly through the dark. Number 21, she never judged anyone. Of all the students who ever walked the winding corridors of Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, few embodied the essence of gentle strength as fully as Luna Lovegood. With her radish earrings swaying and her distant dreamlike gaze, she moved through the magical world without armor or artifice. Where others bristled with pride or masked their uncertainties with cruelty, Luna met the world with an open heart. She existed in a state of quiet defiance, not the kind forged in fire and rebellion, but the kind that endures through storms with unyielding grace. Her refusal to judge others wasn't born of naivety, but of a rare and profound wisdom. In a world where even wizards and witches fell prey to social hierarchies and blood prejudice, Luna stood apart not by shouting against the tide, but by simply refusing to participate in its cruelty. From the moment she was introduced in Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, her strangeness was a point of mockery. "You're being rude," Ginny once snapped at Zachariah Smith, defending Luna against the usual snide remarks. But Luna herself never lashed out. When others laughed at her belief in crumple-horned Snorkax or dismissed her father's eccentric publication, The Quibbler, Luna did not withdraw in shame or retaliate with bitterness. She merely smiled and kept believing. Even Hermione, ever the rational skeptic, often found Luna's ideas exasperating. "There is no such thing as a crumple-horned Snorkack," she insisted, with the certainty of someone who believed that truth could always be defined by books. But Luna never resented Hermione's rejection of her views. Instead, she responded with equanimity, reminding readers that understanding doesn't have to be mutual to be respected. Luna's world was not one of intellectual conquest or social one-upmanship. It was one of coexistence. The boys in her year mocked her behind her back and called her Loony, a nickname scrawled across her possessions, which they stole and hid throughout the year. Most would have broken down under such treatment. But Luna, oddly serene, chose compassion. She never reported the boys. She never cursed them in the corridors or plotted revenge with her wand. She simply accepted that people who did not understand her needed more kindness, not less. That kind of emotional maturity was rare at Hogwarts, where even the kindest students, like Ron Weasley, often failed to filter their judgments. There's a moment, subtle and nearly missed, when Luna joins Harry and Neville on the Hogwarts Express at the end of the 5th book. The atmosphere is tense, Sirius has died, and the shadow of Voldemort's return is no longer speculation. Luna, noticing Harry's sorrow, doesn't try to distract him with platitudes. She speaks quietly about loss, her mother's death, the feeling of invisible absence. "They'll come back in the end," she says with certainty. "Things we lose have a way of coming back to us in the end, if not always in the way we expect." That line, often quoted by fans, is not merely poetic. It's a declaration of hope born from pain, and its power lies in its sincerity. When the Dumbledore's army meetings began in the Room of Requirement, many students joined to learn defense, but Luna joined because she believed in people. Her dueling skills were not extraordinary, yet she fought with heart, never seeking superiority over others. When students struggled, she encouraged them. She never mocked their mistakes, not even when Zacharias Smith, arrogant and self-absorbed, fumbled in his spell work. She saw people as growing things, not as competitors to be ranked. That made her presence in the DA quietly vital. She softened the edges of a group often driven by urgency and fear. At the Ministry of Magic, when she fought beside Harry, Hermione, Ron, Neville and Ginny against the Death Eaters, Luna proved her bravery wasn't performative. She stood in the Department of Mysteries with her wand raised, battling forces of darkness with no concern for glory. In that chaotic fight, she didn't panic. She protected her friends. Even in that terrifying moment when danger surged all around her, Luna remained calm, not because she was fearless, but because she believed in something beyond herself. That belief, that unshakable inner peace, was her armor. One of the most telling moments comes during the 6th year. While the world outside Hogwarts convulsed with war, Luna became a commentator for the Gryffindor Quidditch matches. It was an odd choice, and her commentary was, predictably, unlike any Hogwarts had heard before. She spoke of players as if they were creatures from fables, referenced imaginary animals mid-game, and praised the clouds for their formations. Many students laughed, but Luna didn't care. She didn't perform for their approval, she simply shared what she saw and felt, and despite the absurdity, no one could accuse her of cruelty. She never mocked players, never indulged in sarcasm. For her, even Quidditch was a chance to speak truth as she saw it, not as a sport of rivalry, but as a pageant of wonder. When Harry decided to go to the Ravenclaw common room in the final book, it was Luna who led him there. She trusted him with the secrets of her house, showing her openness extended beyond social walls. She even brought him to the statue of Rowena Ravenclaw and helped him understand the diadem's importance. In that moment, when the fate of the world depended on insight and courage, Luna gave both without hesitation. And when they were nearly caught, she didn't blame Harry. She simply stood by him the way she always had, with acceptance, not accusation. During the Battle of Hogwarts, Luna fought like any warrior, but her greatest act of strength came afterward. At the celebration in the Great Hall, when Harry was overwhelmed by grief and noise, it was Luna who quietly guided him away. She knew, without him saying a word, that he needed space. "You're just as sane as I am," she had once told him, a statement that years later reads like a benediction. She saw people not for who they pretended to be, but for who they truly were. She never mocked madness or misunderstood silence. She honored the soul's quiet truths. It's easy to think of Luna as an outlier, a gentle weirdo who floated on the periphery, but she was always in the center of the story, in the moments that mattered. She never needed the spotlight. She carried light within her. When Xenophilius Lovegood betrayed Harry to the Death Eaters out of fear for his daughter, Luna never turned against her father. She understood his actions without excusing them. That level of moral complexity is rare, especially in war. She didn't judge people by their worst day. When Dean Thomas, Mr. Ollivander, and Luna were imprisoned in Malfoy Manor, it was Luna who comforted them. Her cellmates remembered her voice, her calmness, her ability to soften fear. She didn't escape alone, she helped them all survive. And when Dobby died rescuing them, Luna was the one who closed his eyes and told Harry, "We should bury him, without magic." That gesture, in its quiet reverence, was a testament to her spirit. Even in grief, she honored the dignity of life. Later, she was one of the few who believed Harry when he said he needed to walk into the forest and face death. She didn't beg him to stay or argue with his logic. She simply let him go because she respected the burdens others carried. Luna never clung or demanded. She trusted people to walk their paths. That level of empathy is rarely seen even among the most enlightened adults. After the war, while others rebuilt their lives with ambition or escape, Luna sought knowledge and peace. She became a magi zoologist, not for fame, but because she loved understanding creatures no one else could. She married Rolf Scamander, grandson of Newt, and continued living in a world that had often mocked her. But she never tried to fit in. She never rebranded herself. She simply became more of who she already was. That's the rarest kind of bravery, to remain yourself in a world that constantly tells you to change. Many fans often revisit the moment at Bill and Fleur's wedding, where Luna dances alone under the stars, spinning to music only she seems to fully hear. That image lingers, not as a scene of isolation, but of liberation. Luna does not dance to be seen. She dances because it's what her soul needs. Others glance and look away, unsure of how to join her. But she isn't asking them to. She just invites the possibility. When we speak of heroes in the Harry Potter universe, we often turn to dramatic moments, duels, sacrifices, confrontations with evil. But Luna's heroism lies elsewhere. She teaches us that not judging others is not a weakness, but a kind of higher intelligence. When the world grows cruel, people often justify their harshness with realism. But Luna shows us another path, that gentleness is not ignorance, and that peace can be a choice. In every era, people fear what they don't understand. They mock what they cannot name. Luna endured all of that, not by withdrawing into bitterness, but by expanding her compassion. Her oddities were not armor, they were offerings. She never needed to be understood in order to give love. And that, in the end, may be the most powerful magic of all. The House of Ravenclaw was built on wisdom, but Luna redefined what wisdom looked like. She showed that intelligence wasn't just about facts or logic, but about how deeply you can see into the heart of others. She lived not to persuade people she was right, but to let them feel safe being wrong. In a world obsessed with sorting, Luna refused to put people in boxes. She saw the world as endlessly strange and beautiful, and everyone in it as worthy of kindness. So when we remember Luna Lovegood, let it not be as the loony girl with wild beliefs and distant eyes. Let us remember her as the one who never judged, never mocked, and never gave up on gentleness. Let us remember her as the girl who stood in the center of battle, unwavering, not because she needed to prove herself, but because she had nothing to prove. She had only love to give, and she gave it without condition. Number 22, she fought in the Battle of Hogwarts. When the final battle for Hogwarts erupted into chaos, thunder echoing through the enchanted castle, Luna Lovegood was not among those who fled or hid. She did not tremble or hesitate, despite the raw power shaking the very stones beneath her feet. Instead, she moved through the conflict like a light in the dark, a quiet flame burning with unshakable resolve. Though many had doubted her, dismissed her as eccentric, otherworldly, or even disconnected from reality, it was in this moment that Luna showed who she truly was, a fierce protector of the world she believed in, and a fighter not for glory, but for peace. Luna's involvement in the Battle of Hogwarts is sometimes overshadowed by the chaos of the day, yet her actions speak volumes about her bravery and loyalty. Unlike others who joined the fray with anger or desperation, Luna's purpose came from a place of calm certainty. She had long understood things that others missed, and in the darkest hour her insight became essential. It was Luna who stood beside Harry Potter, Hermione Granger, and Ron Weasley as they searched desperately for the final Horcrux. And it was Luna who guided them to the Room of Requirement, trusting her instincts where logic failed. During that perilous search, time was slipping through their fingers like sand. Voldemort's forces were already breaking into the castle, and every heartbeat mattered. The trio needed access to the room that would transform into what a person needed most. At that moment, a hiding place for Ravenclaw's lost diadem one of the last remaining pieces of Voldemort's soul. It was Luna who whispered the truth to Harry when he was overwhelmed by panic. "You've got to talk to someone who's seen it, who's seen what's become of it," she said, urging him to speak to the Grey Lady, Helena Ravenclaw. This quiet suggestion changed everything. Luna's understanding of Hogwarts and its spirits proved vital. Without her, Harry might never have learned the truth about the diadem's hiding place. Helena Ravenclaw had wandered Hogwarts for centuries, haunted by guilt and secrets, but she opened up to Harry because of Luna's encouragement. Luna's ability to see what others ignored, her belief in the hidden, the invisible, the impossible, was not foolishness. It was her greatest strength. Once the trio had the information they needed, Luna remained by their side, navigating through collapsing corridors and firelit chaos. She did not turn away from danger. When the room of requirement morphed into a fiery trap under the hands of Vincent Crabbe's cursed fire, Luna fought to stay alive, helping Ron and Hermione escape, even as the magical flames consumed everything around them. She survived not because she was lucky, but because she was clear-eyed in the face of destruction, as calm in war as she was in peace. Later, in the Great Hall, where the final phase of the battle took place, Luna's presence was unmistakable. Amid the broken chandeliers, shattered benches, and cries of fear and rage, she fought side by side with Hogwarts professors, members of the Order of the Phoenix, and fellow students from Dumbledore's army. Her wand did not falter. She cast jinxes, shields, and stunning spells with steady precision, her pale face set with quiet determination. She did not scream or rage. Luna was not one for shouting, but her silence was powerful, a presence of unwavering intent. She fought not because she sought vengeance or reward. Luna was not fueled by anger like Molly Weasley when Bellatrix Lestrange threatened her daughter, nor was she driven by the kind of guilt that led Percy Weasley to rejoin the fight. Luna was there for a deeper reason, because this castle was her home, its people, her family, and its ideals worth protecting. "We're all still here," she had said earlier during the build-up to the battle, as if reminding everyone that unity was their greatest weapon. Her words held more weight than any speech. One of the most telling moments came during the lull after the main wave of the battle. In the quiet, just before Voldemort called for Harry to surrender himself, Luna was one of the few who helped calm the wounded, organize the survivors, and bring a sense of clarity to the chaos. She tended to younger students, held the hand of a crying first year, and even comforted a bloodied Professor Trelawney. Her empathy did not collapse under pressure. Instead, it became a guiding light for those around her. She was not just a warrior, but a healer of spirits. Luna's strength was never loud, never brash, but in those final hours it proved unshakable. She stood between students and Death Eaters, her wand raised without flinching, and deflected curses meant to kill. She saved at least 2 Ravenclaw first years from a rogue spell cast by Travers, sending a burst of blue light that knocked the dark wizard off his feet. "Expelliarmus!" she had cried, her voice clear and ringing across the room. It was a moment few noticed, but one that saved lives. Even in the face of death, Luna never lost her sense of wonder. As magical ceilings cracked and walls collapsed, she looked upward, murmuring something about Raxspurts fleeing the dying stone. It might have sounded strange to some, but in truth she was mourning, not only the building, but the invisible magic she believed lived within it. She respected Hogwarts as a living being, and her sadness was as profound as her courage. It takes a rare soul to grieve and fight at the same time, but Luna managed both. In the final moments, when Harry made the ultimate sacrifice and then returned to life to face Voldemort, Luna was still there. She had seen death many times after all. Her mother's loss had marked her early life. She understood the weight of sacrifice, the depth of pain. She stood among the defenders of Hogwarts not as a child, but as someone who had long since accepted that the world was both beautiful and cruel, and still she chose to fight for its beauty. After Voldemort fell, when the battle's echoes had faded, Luna did not celebrate with cries or victory dances. She sat quietly by a window near the library, comforting Neville Longbottom as he wept. She had seen him fight, seen him kill Nagini with the sword of Gryffindor, and she knew that even heroes sometimes broke. Luna whispered something about moon frogs and peace, something strange and gentle. But it made Neville smile. That was her gift. She brought peace, even in aftermath. Luna's role in the Battle of Hogwarts proved that bravery comes in many forms. Not all heroes charge into battle roaring. Some walk into fire without a word. Some give you the answer you didn't know you needed. Some hold your hand when your world is falling apart. "You're just as sane as I am," she once told Harry, and in those words lay a powerful truth. Sanity in Luna's world meant believing in love, friendship, magic, and the unseen connections that bind us. Though she was a Ravenclaw, her heart matched the courage of any Gryffindor. Even Professor McGonagall once admitted after the battle that Miss Lovegood possesses a rare kind of wisdom. It was Luna's insight, not her spells, that shaped the course of events. She saw where the final Horcrux was. She stood firm when others fell. She gave comfort without asking for thanks. She saved lives without seeking recognition. Her power was quiet, but undeniable. Looking back, it becomes clear that the battle might have gone differently without her. What if Harry had never found the Grey Lady? What if Luna had not been there to help them escape the fire? What if she had faltered in the Great Hall, leaving younger students defenseless? History often forgets the details in the rush to honor louder names, but Luna's story reminds us that the quiet ones, the dreamers and believers, often carry the heaviest burdens with the most grace. She remained herself throughout it all. She did not abandon her eccentricities to blend in. She wore her butterbeer cork necklace into battle. Her radish earrings swung beside her cheeks as she deflected curses. She believed in Nargles as much as she believed in the goodness of people. And this unwavering sense of self, was what made her so powerful. She fought for a world where everyone could be exactly who they were and still be loved, still be safe. After the war, Luna continued to embody the same spirit. She became a naturalist, searching the world for magical creatures others believed were myths. She remained friends with Neville, Ginny, and Harry, and always reminded them that magic lived in more than wands and spells. It lived in kindness, in courage, and in wonder. But her actions at Hogwarts would always be the clearest proof of her heart. When everything fell apart, Luna Lovegood held it together, not with force, but with faith. She never asked for medals, she never claimed credit, and yet her contribution remains one of the most profound. In a world gone mad with war and terror, she offered clarity. In a castle filled with death, she offered life. In a moment when all seemed lost, Luna reminded everyone what was worth fighting for. Her bravery did not roar. It glowed quietly, steadily, and with the strength of someone who had nothing to prove and everything to protect. Number 23, Harry named his daughter after her. Lily Luna Potter, 3 small words stitched with threads of love, memory, and quiet reverence. Fans across the world know that Lily is named after Harry's mother, the woman whose sacrifice anchored the entire saga. But Luna, that name, placed delicately in the middle, often slips by unnoticed, yet it holds a weight that only those who truly saw can understand. Luna Lovegood, the girl mocked for her strangeness, whose wide eyes saw past illusions, and whose presence during Harry's darkest days was like a lantern in fog. The truth of that middle name was never carved into the book's pages. It was a gift offered outside canon, a gentle whisper from J.K. Rowling herself when she revealed that Luna was the inspiration behind Harry and Ginny's daughter's middle name. It was, in essence, a memorial not just to bravery, but to a peculiar kind of unwavering belief. When Harry was brought to his knees in the room of requirement, after losing Dobby, burdened by hopelessness and questions without answers, it was Luna who steadied the moment. She conjured a light in the midst of grief, not with spells, but with grace. "We should close his eyes," she said softly, kneeling beside the elf's small body. It was Luna who comforted him in the cavern of sorrow. She wrapped Harry's pain in her voice like a shawl, not to smother it, but to hold it gently. She reminded him of dignity when he'd nearly forgotten it. That is not a small thing. For someone like Harry, who bore the unbearable alone for so long, her presence was more than comfort. It was salvation. Luna was not just a member of Dumbledore's army. She was a sentinel in the shadows, a quiet, faithful witness to Harry's journey. In the halls of Hogwarts, where laughter at her expense echoed louder than footsteps, she walked with grace unbothered. Harry noticed it all. In Order of the Phoenix, he stood beside her as others mocked her radish earrings and butterbeer cork necklace, and something shifted in him. She was strange, yes, but she was whole. She didn't need approval. Her truth was not up for vote, and in that she became something Harry had rarely encountered, someone who was real without armor. It was Luna who helped Harry see the Thestrals, those winged, skeletal creatures visible only to those who had seen death. He had just lost Cedric Diggory. The world no longer looked the same. Most people might have offered empty platitudes or diverted their eyes, but not Luna. "You're just as sane as I am," she said gently, placing the strange beside the ordinary and telling him he was not alone. That one moment made her unforgettable. It marked her not as an outsider, but as someone who inhabited a deeper realm of understanding, a realm Harry was just beginning to enter. When the battle raged at Hogwarts and shadows clashed with light, Luna was not a bystander. She stood, wand drawn, fear swallowed, beside those who would not run. And even before that, in the bowels of Malfoy Manor, imprisoned with Harry in the cellar, she remained calm. She offered comfort in captivity. She offered ideas when despair silenced others. She steadied Griphook. She spoke to Ollivander. Luna turned darkness into direction, giving Harry the means to escape and continue his quest. There, surrounded by damp stone and cold iron, Luna never panicked. Her spirit was air, untrapped, unshaken. Ginny had seen it too. The two girls became close in their own right. Ginny understood Luna's value, not just her loyalty, but her peculiar clarity. That makes the choice of name doubly poignant. Lily Luna, the mother who died for love and the friend who believed in it. It is a pairing not of obligation, but of heartfelt honor. Harry and Ginny, in naming their daughter thus, planted both memory and gratitude in her identity. And while fans often discuss Lily Evans, it is Luna Lovegood who drifts quietly behind that name like a gentle echo. Harry never forgot the people who stood by him, especially when others turned away. Cho Chang may have been a fleeting ache and Hermione the sister he never had, but Luna was a mirror. Strange, bright, honest. In Deathly Hallows, when they finally re-entered Hogwarts, Luna was among the first to join him. Her presence in the final stand was not an accident. It was destiny. She chose him, time and again, with no expectations, no demands. She believed when others doubted. She saw when others blinked. And Harry, whether he admitted it aloud or not, loved her for that. There is a scene that often slips beneath the surface, but in it lies the foundation of Luna's impact. After the battle was won, after the war had been etched in stone and blood, Harry stood alone, overwhelmed by voices and faces. It was Luna who came to him.
"You look like you're suffocating," she said simply. Then she created a distraction, steering the crowd away so that Harry could slip away in peace. She understood his need without him speaking it. That is not kindness, that is communion. Few people reached Harry like that. Luna did, effortlessly, intuitively. Naming a child is more than sentiment, it is legacy. It is passing on values, memories, secrets. The name Luna is a torch. It says to the world, we honor not only those who fought with wands, but those who fought with lightness, kindness, and the courage to be different. Luna, in her own quiet way, taught Harry that not all battles require anger. That some victories come through imagination, through faith, through an unshakable sense of wonder. In a world that had tried to steal Harry's hope again and again, Luna restored it, not with promises, but with presence. She spoke of creatures others mocked. She believed in nargles, crumple-horned snorkax, and rackspurts, but she also believed in friendship, destiny, and magic that couldn't be taught in books. When others dismissed her as loony Lovegood, Harry never joined them. In fact, he defended her. He began to see her beliefs not as madness, but as defiance, a refusal to let cynicism dim the world's colour. He saw in Luna what Dumbledore must have meant when he said, "Happiness can be found even in the darkest of times, if one only remembers to turn on the light." Years later, as he held his daughter for the first time, those memories must have returned. The quiet cellar, the smell of dust and stone, Luna's soft voice in the dark. He must have remembered her eyes, always wide, always clear, even when the world was crumbling. He must have remembered how, when no one else could reach him, she already stood beside him, already knew. To place her name within his daughter's was to say, you too can be brave without needing to roar. You can be different without apology. You can change the world with gentleness. It is easy to remember the loud heroes, the ones with swords and speeches, but the ones who heal without demand, who lift without weight, who inspire without trying, they are rarer. Luna was rare. She asked for nothing, gave everything, and left behind a kind of grace that made the world feel bearable. For Harry, who had spent so long doubting his place in the world, Luna reminded him of beauty beyond war, of peace that didn't need to be won through battle. In her, he saw the life he was fighting for. Albus Severus was named for warriors and mentors, James Sirius for mischief and loyalty. But Lily Luna, she was the soul, the flicker in the dark. She represented softness that survived the storm. Ginny too must have felt it. She had watched Luna endure Hogwarts cruelty with a tilt of the chin and a smile that refused to fade. Together, Ginny and Harry honored both fierceness and gentleness. Together they told their daughter, the world will not always understand you, but you must remain true the way Luna did. That name was a compass. In that choice, Rowling gave fans something deeper than nostalgia. She confirmed what so many had already felt, that Luna's role was not peripheral. She was essential. She was part of the story's spine, the secret strength that held Harry together in the moments when fame, prophecy, and fear collided. She was not romanticized, she was not idealized, she was real, flawed, strange, human. And it was in that humanity that her power bloomed. Luna's name wasn't merely a nod to friendship. It was recognition, an acknowledgement of the unseen forces that shaped Harry's survival. Even after Hogwarts, Luna continued to live vibrantly. She became a naturalist, chased down magical beasts, and remained unapologetically herself. She married Rolf Scamander, had twin boys, and built a life stitched with adventure and curiosity. But she remained in Harry's heart. That never changed. He didn't write books about her. He didn't turn her into legend. Instead, he folded her into his own legacy, into his family. That was quieter, more sacred. That was love. In the grand tapestry of Harry Potter's life,
Luna Lovegood may not have stood at the center, but she was the golden thread that held frayed corners together. Her name, tucked into his daughter's, is the proof. A lifetime later, if Lily Luna ever asked why she bore that middle name, Harry would not need long explanations. He would speak softly of a girl who saw the unseen, who comforted the grieving, who walked through life as if every shadow could become a star. And in that moment, Lily Luna would know her name is a promise, a memory, a light. Number 24, she didn't trust official narratives. Luna Lovegood was never an ordinary child. From her earliest days, she lived not only surrounded by the magical world, but submerged in a unique corner of it, crafted carefully by her father, Xenophilius Lovegood. The editor of The Quibbler, Xenophilius filled its pages with articles few dared to take seriously, tales of crumple-horned snorkacs, conspiracies about the Ministry of Magic, and claims that the sky was, quite literally, watching us. Luna absorbed all of it with wide eyes and a quiet mind, not as unquestioning belief, but as potential truths no one else was brave enough to consider. She didn't believe everything, but she believed in questioning everything. It was this foundation, this instinctual resistance to what was considered normal, that made Luna one of the most remarkable minds in Hogwarts, even if no one quite realized it until it mattered most. Unlike her classmates, Luna didn't require evidence from authority to believe something was true. She did not wait for the ministry to publish a decree to make up her mind. When Cornelius Fudge publicly denied Voldemort's return, and the Daily Prophet labelled Harry a delusional attention-seeker, Luna didn't flinch. She had been taught not to place her faith in the ministry's polished smiles or carefully prepared statements. She had learned, long before others, that truth was often inconvenient, unpopular, and whispered rather than announced. While her peers gawked at Rita Skeeter's slanderous articles, Luna was calmly absorbing the issue of the Quibbler that dared to publish Harry's own account of the night Cedric died and Voldemort rose again. In her 4th year, Luna arrived at Hogwarts for the first time and was instantly marked by difference. Students mocked her for her dreamy eyes, her radish earrings, and her habit of reading the Quibbler upside down. But what they misunderstood was that Luna was not lost in fantasy. She was walking a parallel path to their own. While others saw only what they were told to see, Luna noticed what was behind the curtain. When she told her fellow Ravenclaws that the ministry was manipulating information, they laughed. But when Dolores Umbridge arrived and began her slow poisoning of education, those same students began to sense what Luna already knew: appearances lie. The importance of the Quibbler in Luna's life cannot be overstated. It was not merely a magazine, it was the air she breathed. In the issue that featured Harry's account of the graveyard, Xenophilius printed the interview without edits, without government approval, and without fear. It was important, Luna said later, because people needed to know the truth. This was the essence of her upbringing, that truth was not always given to you, you had to seek it. And this belief led her to become one of the first Hogwarts students outside Harry's inner circle who not only supported his claims, but actively defended them. She was unshakable. When others dismissed Dumbledore's army as a foolish rebellion, Luna joined without hesitation. She did not need proof that the ministry was wrong. She had been taught to expect it. Her first lesson in the Room of Requirement wasn't just about spellwork, it was about resistance. She practiced silently, absorbed instructions, and cast Patronuses with ethereal grace. But more than that, she brought an unbending moral compass. In a world where people blindly obeyed orders or hid behind fear, Luna's quiet defiance became an act of rebellion. She followed her heart when others waited for permission. During Christmas of her 5th year, when Luna visited the burrow with Harry, she told him calmly, almost offhandedly, that her mother had died performing an experimental spell. "It was rather horrible," she said, "but I still have Dad." That sentence, simple and strange, revealed everything. Her life had been touched by loss, and instead of bitterness, she had grown up with questions. She didn't wall herself off from pain. She invited it to teach her something. And from that pain, she formed a lens through which she viewed the world, one that refused to accept that the world always made sense. After the Battle of the Department of Mysteries, the wizarding world could no longer deny Voldemort's return. But Luna's trust in Harry had never wavered. She believed him not because he was famous, but because she recognized sincerity when she saw it. The fact that she had believed all along, when even Ron and Hermione had occasionally faltered, became a defining element of her character. She did not require social consensus to form a conviction. She needed only her own judgment. That, perhaps, was her greatest magic, the courage to believe what others refused to. In the final year at Hogwarts, while Harry, Ron, and Hermione searched for Horcruxes, Luna remained behind and faced the rise of tyranny from within the school. Under the Carrows regime, Luna helped maintain the spirit of resistance. She painted messages of hope and sabotage on walls, attended secret meetings, and continued to question every official pronouncement, no matter how brutal the consequence. Eventually, she was kidnapped and held in the cellar of Malfoy Manor for the crime of being the daughter of Xenophilius Lovegood, the man who had printed truths the Death Eaters wanted silenced. Even in captivity, Luna remained composed. When Harry saw her again, she greeted him with serene optimism, even while imprisoned. That was her nature. There's a strange power in a person who doesn't cling to the need to be believed. Luna never demanded that people see things her way. She didn't try to convert others to her way of thinking. She simply stated her truth and walked on. Her belief in creatures like Nargles and blibbering humdingers wasn't delusion, it was a test. Could you hold your ground when people laughed at you? Could you remain kind when mocked? Luna could, and in doing so she showed others how. Neville Longbottom, a boy whose courage grew in silence, found strength in Luna's certainty. He once admitted that she made him feel braver, not because she gave speeches, but because she believed in things without shame. That belief was contagious. Dean Thomas, Ginny Weasley, and even the skeptical Ernie Macmillan drew strength from Luna's odd wisdom. She reminded them that sometimes the strangest person in the room sees what no one else does. When the Battle of Hogwarts erupted, Luna stood in the thick of it, not as a warrior born for combat, but as someone who understood that resisting evil meant more than swinging a wand. It meant refusing to accept lies. It meant fighting not just for victory, but for truth. In the midst of fire and fear, Luna guided Harry to Ravenclaw Tower, where they sought the lost diadem. She was not a sidekick. She was essential. Her knowledge of Hogwarts, her intuition, and her ability to see patterns others missed proved invaluable. After the war, Luna didn't seek glory. She became a naturalist, searching for creatures others believed imaginary. But she was never truly chasing animals. She was searching for meaning, for proof that the world still held mysteries worth believing in. She never gave up questioning the official story. When new ministries rose, when new leaders promised peace, Luna continued to write, to ask, to explore. She had no loyalty to power, only to truth. People often misunderstood Luna's eccentricity. They assumed that because she dressed strangely or spoke dreamily, she was foolish. But, as Dumbledore once said, wit beyond measure is man's greatest treasure. Luna's wit was not sharp and sarcastic. It was gentle, persistent, and revolutionary. She knew the world was a layered thing, truths hidden under masks, motives buried under protocol. And while others sought control, Luna sought understanding. The moment when Harry names his daughter Lily, Luna is more than sentiment. It's an acknowledgement that Luna's influence had left a permanent mark on him. She had reminded him that believing in something, even when no one else does, is not foolish. It is brave. In her own way, Luna Lovegood was the most courageous person he knew. Not because she fought dragons, but because she stared down ridicule, manipulation, and doubt and kept believing. Her relationship with her father was at the core of her identity. When Xenophilius betrayed Harry under pressure, Luna forgave him. She knew what desperation could do, but she also knew that integrity must be rebuilt. After the war, the Quibbler changed. It became more serious, more respected, and more trusted, because it had stood for the truth when others bowed to propaganda. Luna helped reforge it into a publication that didn't just question authority, it illuminated reality. In the end, Luna Lovegood taught a generation that magic wasn't just in spells and potions. Magic was in the way you saw the world, in daring to wonder, in refusing to settle for answers someone else gave you, in believing that truth might be found in the unlikeliest places. She showed that faith in your own mind, in your own heart, was more powerful than any official decree. And for that, she will always be more than a side character. She will be a symbol. The world tried to write Luna off as odd, but time proved her right. The Ministry did lie. Dumbledore did keep secrets. Voldemort did return. And through it all, Luna listened, not to the loudest voice, but to the one inside her. That quiet defiance, wrapped in kindness, made her one of the few who didn't just survive the war, she transcended it, not because she wielded power, but because she never surrendered her ability to question. That is what made her dangerous, and that is what made her extraordinary. Number 25. She supported Neville when others didn't. Long before the halls of Hogwarts echoed with Neville Longbottom's bold resistance against the Carrows, he was a quiet, awkward boy who shrank from attention and stumbled through magic as if he didn't belong. Teachers often overlooked him, peers frequently dismissed him. Even his own grandmother, stern and demanding, never seemed satisfied with his progress. To many, Neville was a walking example of what a wizard ought not to be, forgetful, clumsy, and hopelessly behind. In a world obsessed with glory, Neville existed in the background, enduring each day with quiet endurance, yet even shadows can hold sparks of fire, and for Neville, one of those sparks came wrapped in radish earrings and dreamy eyes. When Luna Lovegood arrived at Hogwarts, her entrance was met with amusement, suspicion, and ridicule. Known for her eccentric beliefs and odd behaviors, Luna never tried to fit in, nor did she demand others understand her. Students called her loony, stole her shoes, and rolled their eyes at her strange commentary. But Luna never retaliated. Instead, she walked the halls with a serene composure, seemingly untouched by cruelty. It was this resilience, this tranquil strength, that first drew Neville's silent admiration. Luna, like him, was different, but unlike him, she seemed at peace with it. They were not immediate friends. Their paths ran parallel through the early years, Neville fumbling with spells, Luna speaking of creatures no one else could see. But everything changed during their 5th year when Dumbledore's army was born. Suddenly, they were no longer outcasts observing from the sidelines. They became part of something bigger. In those hidden rooms of the Room of Requirement, as spells were cast and defences learned, the bonds between them began to take root. Luna never scoffed at Neville's efforts. She didn't look away when he failed to cast a proper stunning spell or hesitated in front of a boggart. She watched him with calm eyes, always expecting him to succeed. When others lost patience, Luna remained. After one particularly difficult session, when Neville couldn't disarm a dummy even after multiple tries, it was Luna who sat beside him on the floor, quietly offering encouragement. She didn't flatter or console in false tones. Instead, she said, in her gentle, unwavering voice, "You did better this time." That was all. But in that small phrase lay the essence of her support. It was genuine, unforced, and free of judgment. It was exactly what Neville had never received from his peers or family. Luna believed in him, not in the dramatic, heroic way books often describe, but in the real, persistent way that matters most. Throughout their 5th year, that belief blossomed into quiet companionship. Luna, often lost in her own thoughts, made space for Neville without changing who she was. And in return, Neville began to rise, not with loud triumph, but with small victories that stitched together a growing confidence. He stunned a practice dummy. He corrected his wand grip. He dared to speak more often during meetings, all under Luna's calm gaze. She didn't praise him loudly, but her presence was its own kind of encouragement. "You're not as bad as you think, you know," she once said after practice, brushing a wisp of hair from her face. For Neville, those words settled into his chest like warmth in winter. The battle at the Department of Mysteries marked a turning point for many, but for Neville and Luna it was the moment their strength crystallized. Trapped with Death Eaters, bruised and battered, they stood shoulder to shoulder, fighting with every ounce of courage they had. Neville's nose was broken, Luna's wand had been yanked away. Yet neither of them fled. In that chaos, their loyalty to each other, and to the friends who fought beside them, solidified something greater than magic. They were brave, not because they had been trained to be, but because they chose to be. And Luna never once looked at Neville with pity or concern, only trust. By the time Harry, Ron, and Hermione disappeared during their final year, Neville remained behind, and in the absence of heroes he became one, but he did not rise alone. Luna stood beside him, her belief in him unchanged. Together with Ginny Weasley, they revived Dumbledore's army. They turned fear into action. They turned isolation into resistance. Luna encouraged Neville to speak during meetings, to lead when others hesitated. She saw in him what few ever had, a natural strength hidden beneath years of doubt. Even when the Carrows cracked down with merciless punishments, Luna never treated Neville like a victim. When he returned from detentions with bruised knuckles and tired eyes, she offered him books from her father's collection, or simply sat with him in silence. It was her way of saying, "You are not alone." And Neville, who once couldn't finish a sentence without stuttering, began to walk through Hogwarts with his head held high. When Luna was captured and taken to Malfoy Manor, it left a hollow space among the resistance. Neville felt it deeply. Her absence was more than a missing face. It was the missing breath of calm that had always steadied him. But even in her silence, her influence lingered. Neville kept going. For her. For what she stood for what she had taught him. Kindness in the face of cruelty. Belief in the face of doubt. He would later say, "Luna always saw the truth of people." And in his case, that was more literal than most. While others underestimated Neville, Luna saw a fighter long before he picked up the sword of Gryffindor. She saw the boy who could stand up, even when others told him to sit down. In Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, when Neville slices off Nagini's head, delivering a fatal blow to Voldemort's soul, it is not a sudden transformation. It is the final bloom of seeds Luna helped plant. During the Battle of Hogwarts, Luna and Neville fought side by side once more. As chaos erupted and the walls crumbled, they shielded students, disarmed foes, and reminded everyone that bravery did not always wear the face of prophecy. Neville wasn't the chosen one, and Luna never tried to make him one. She simply reminded him he mattered, that his choices counted, and that being kind didn't mean being weak. That belief gave Neville a foundation to stand on when the world began to fall apart. In the final moments of the war, when Voldemort offered mercy in exchange for surrender, it was Neville who stepped forward, bloody, tired, but unbroken. "It doesn't matter that Harry's gone," he said. "People die every day. Friends, family. We lost Harry tonight, but he's still with us, in here." Those words, ringing across the ruined courtyard, came not just from pain, but from hard-earned strength, a strength Luna had always trusted. After the war, they didn't remain a couple, as some fans had hoped. Neville would go on to marry Hannah Abbott, and Luna would continue her journey of discovery. But the mark she left on him never faded. He became a respected professor at Hogwarts, a symbol of perseverance and integrity. And somewhere within that identity lay Luna's unwavering friendship, etched into the very core of who he had become. It's easy to overlook how powerful small acts of kindness can be. Luna didn't rescue Neville from danger, nor did she cast great spells on his behalf. But she saw him, in a castle full of people too busy to care. She paused, listened, and spoke words he had never heard before. Her belief was quiet, but it was also unshakable. And in a world built on loud power, that quiet belief became revolutionary. Their friendship became a testament to the idea that not all magic is learned from textbooks. Some of it lives in the way we treat others, especially those no one else notices. Luna noticed Neville, not for who he was expected to be, but for who he truly was. That recognition gave him the courage to become a leader, a protector, a hero, not because he changed who he was, but because he embraced it fully. J.K. Rowling wrote Luna as someone who defied normal logic, but in doing so she made Luna one of the most emotionally intelligent characters in the series. Her support of Neville wasn't loud or dramatic, but it was constant. And that constancy helped Neville find his footing in a school that had for years made him feel like he didn't belong. It's no exaggeration to say that Luna helped build the man who would later face down death and never flinch. In the wizarding world, where talents are measured in spells and potions, Luna Lovegood proved that empathy is its own form of magic. Her belief in Neville didn't need a wand or incantation. It needed only patience, attention, and care. And in the end, it was that kind of magic that truly changed the course of the war, not just in battles, but in hearts. Neville's transformation wasn't a miracle. It was a slow, often painful climb, but Luna stood beside him on that path, not carrying him, but walking with him. She reminded him with every glance, every word, every moment of silence, that he was already enough. And when the time came for him to draw the sword and rise, he did, because he believed he could, because someone else had believed it first. Number 26. She respected Muggle culture. Of all the young witches who wandered the halls of Hogwarts, Luna Lovegood stood apart, not because she tried to, but because the world seemed always to see her from a tilted angle. While other students laughed at her dreamy gaze, or the way she adorned her ears with radish-shaped earrings, few noticed something far rarer than her eccentricities. Luna Lovegood, daughter of the controversial editor Xenophilius Lovegood, respected and embraced the Muggle world with a gentle curiosity that few in the wizarding community dared to express. Most pure-blood families scoffed at the idea of Muggle culture being of any value. Even among the more tolerant half-bloods and Muggle-borns there was a subtle arrogance. Magic was, after all, superior. But Luna never saw it that way. She once lingered beside Hermione in the Hogwarts courtyard, a battered astronomy book in her lap, listening to the Muggle-born witch explain the phases of the moon. Luna's eyes widened, not in confusion but wonder, as Hermione described how tides responded to the moon's pull, how planets spun in silent rhythm through a void untouched by magic. Luna had studied the stars in divination, had mapped their positions for astronomy class, but the idea that Muggles could observe and understand them without spells, using only telescopes and mathematics, delighted her. "It's rather poetic," she whispered once, watching the stars blink awake above the forbidden forest. "To imagine people discovering the universe without magic, just hope and curiosity." There was a peculiar reverence in her voice whenever she mentioned Muggle inventions. Unlike Arthur Weasley, whose fascination bordered on comic obsession, Luna's respect came from a different place. Arthur admired gadgets, Luna admired meaning. When she first heard about electricity, she tilted her head slightly and murmured, "It's like bottled lightning, isn't it? But they coax it into wires instead of wands." She asked questions about batteries, circuit boards, and televisions, not to collect trivia, but to understand how people without wands crafted light and warmth out of the invisible. Harry noticed it during their 5th year, when Luna sat beside him in the room of requirement, flipping through a tattered Muggle book Hermione had loaned her. It was a collection of Shakespeare's sonnets. Most students wouldn't bother deciphering the archaic words, and even Hermione had warned Luna it might be confusing without context. But Luna didn't mind. She read the poems aloud under her breath, savouring the words like unfamiliar flavours. "This one," she said, pointing to Sonnet 130. "I think he's saying he loves someone for who she is, not because she's perfect. That's very kind of him." She misunderstood some metaphors, perhaps, but she grasped the soul of the poem in a way few did. Luna even insisted on attending a Muggle Studies class voluntarily, though she didn't need the extra credit. Many students saw the subject as a joke, but Luna took notes, asked questions, and often stayed behind to talk to Professor Burbage. She once brought in a Muggle magazine she had borrowed from Hermione and asked how cameras captured images without spells. When she learned about light-sensitive film, her eyes sparkled with awe. "They taught Silver to remember," she said, holding the magazine like sacred parchment. It wasn't just science or literature that fascinated her. Luna loved Muggle music, especially the kind played on vinyl records. At Shell Cottage, when she spent time with the Weasleys during the war, she found an old gramophone left behind by Muggle neighbours and played their dusty records late into the night. The melodies were strange, nostalgic, filled with crackles and soft harmonies. She hummed along, her voice ethereal, as if the music passed through her and into the wind. Bill later told Harry that Luna had once cried listening to a Muggle lullaby, saying it reminded her of her mother, though she never explained how. Perhaps the most touching example came during her captivity at Malfoy Manor. Locked away with Ollivander and others, Luna kept her calm by reciting lines from the Muggle poems she had memorized. Ollivander recalled later that Luna had once whispered, "Love looks not with the eyes, but with the mind, from a midsummer night's dream." The old wand-maker said it was the only time he saw her voice tremble, as if the words were a spell of defiance against the darkness. They weren't magic, not in the wizard's sense, but in Luna's mind they offered the same kind of strength. It's worth noting that Luna's fascination with Muggles was not a rebellious act or a political statement. It wasn't about proving equality or fighting blood prejudice. Luna didn't draw lines between Muggles and wizards to begin with. She viewed all people as pieces of the same mysterious puzzle. While the Death Eaters ranted about purity and the Ministry bumbled through reforms, Luna quietly lived the truth others debated. She saw wonder in things magical and non-magical alike. There's a memory Hermione once shared with Ginny, years after the war, of walking through Diagon Alley with Luna one autumn afternoon. They had passed a Muggle-born street artist sketching caricatures with enchanted charcoal. Most witches walked past, unimpressed by the Muggle style. But Luna stopped, tipped the artist generously, and asked him to draw her as he saw her. When he handed her the finished sketch, a wild swirl of hair and wide, unblinking eyes, Luna smiled and said, "This is how I imagine I look when I dream." Even after the war, when so many retreated into safety and the familiar, Luna continued to collect fragments of Muggle life like seashells. On her travels, she sent letters to her friends with Muggle stamps instead of owl post, just to see if the mail would still arrive. She visited Muggle museums and once spent an afternoon trying to learn how a microwave worked, claiming that it looked like a house elf trapped in a metal box. She never mocked these things, only celebrated them in her own whimsical way. When she married Rolf Scamander, their wedding was a blend of traditions, wizarding flowers that sang under moonlight, and Muggle string lights powered by a small generator. Some guests found the combination odd, but Luna danced beneath both the stars and electric bulbs, as if the entire world had conspired to light the path beneath her feet. Xenophilius gave a speech in which he praised his daughter's unshakable openness, to truths beyond our own wand tips.